be shy.
Check Into Cash, now celebrating 20 years, is proud to present the beautiful Clydesdale horses. Visit cashdales.com for the upcoming schedule and more information.
Check Into Cash, they're on their way. The mighty Clydesdales will make your day.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson on Whoop FM. Call 423-614-5553 to join in on the conversation. Now, back to Backfire.
All right, we're back. We're live here in the studio. I've got a good question, something that we hadn't talked about in a long time, Franklin, and I've got two Democrats in the office. In the studio this morning, and I want to pose this question to you again. Do you think that we need IDs for voting?
I don't care that we have IDs for voting if the system's created in a way that encourages people to easily be able to get them and to vote. If you set them up in ways that dissuade people from voting, I don't understand what it is we've accomplished.
Well, let me ask you something. Do they have to have a voter ID card to vote? Or do they have to have a picture, driver's license, or passport, or something to show proof identity to vote? Are you for that or against it?
Again, it goes back to how you manage the system that you do it.
All right, assuming the system is fair and there's as easy a access as we can provide, do you support IDs to vote or not?
Who cares at that point? It's fine.
Well, I mean, the problem's been the Democrats have been fighting against the ID policy, I think.
No, I don't think they're fighting against that policy. I think they're policing the way they're implementing it.
We gave it for free, and we gave it in all kinds of avenues.
Well, anyway, I know you've argued in the past that there hasn't been that much fraud in this, and prove to me where the fraud is and some of these types of things.
What I say is this. Let's say you can identify 100 cases of fraud in a state.
Okay.
What have we accomplished if we do a plan that lowers people who voted by 10,000 because who legitimately voted because they didn't get
a plan that lowers people from voting? What would lower people from voting in a plan?
Well, for example, initially it was, everybody gets a driver's license. No, they don't. Lots of people don't have cars, especially in urban areas.
Okay, you go to voter registration and sign up and vote.
Okay, so you got people who've already registered to vote legally, who did it correctly.
Right.
Okay, now somehow they've got the burden's on them to go get this card that you say they needed.
Why wouldn't the burden of everyday life be on an individual citizen?
They already registered legitimately.
Franklin, why wouldn't see? Let me interrupt because this is a big difference between Republican and Democrat Party. Personally, I believe individual citizens should take responsibility for their lives. Right. You all think the government ought to take care of it.
I know that we talked about this before, and I don't want to make a long subject out of it, but I was watching a program this week, and it really, really got my attention. And it was talking about the elections and a couple of things. First of all, the thieves, and I'm going to say voter thieves, I'm not saying Republican or Democrat, but people who wish to try to influence elections simply read the obituaries. They take the obituaries and they can vote with this someone who's passed away's name. Now then, the problem our country has is they don't have a way to verify back to the election people the obituaries. And so these things are left in the systems for years, and people, I'm telling you, they just have to find someone who died, and they can use their name to go in and vote without ID.
It really helps if you're, say the Ford family and you run a funeral home in Memphis and you're able to actually have the obituaries right at hand. And then you send your employees out while you're paying them to actually register and vote in their place.
Now you're creating a fantasy. Come on.
That's, of course, how they would win by, 25, 30% every election.
Franklin, that case was brought by the Democrat that they beat in the election. That wasn't even a Republican involved in that. That was your own party. And then the state executive committee wiped that woman's victory off the map anyway.
My point is this. Look, let's just say that there's some reason that we need these voter ID requirements. Okay.
I think it was a big deal for me, Franklin, when I was turned old enough to vote, to go down to the courthouse and register to vote. That
Okay.
was a big deal to me.
Okay.
Go ahead, Franklin. Tell us what.
Well, there's no problem with. We already have people who register. Okay, number one. So now you're talking about a second thing that they have to do when they go vote. But let's say that you're right about that, and we need this. Why, in the same pieces of legislation, are we cutting back voting hours, cutting back early voting, which was extremely popular with people? Why are we doing those things at the very same time?
Save money, maybe?
No, wait a
Or
minute.
to hold the turnout down because it's better.
All right, so wait a minute. Let me make
'Cause
sure
it's
I understand you, Franklin. What you're saying is don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Okay.
right.
I'm saying if you really believe this, and the intent is not, because where are we seeing it? We're only seeing it in Republican-controlled states.
All right.
Okay.
Well, let me follow your.
And in particular ones where the population trends are starting not to favor them.
Well, actually, Franklin, for your information, the first state that did this was Rhode Island, and it was done by a black Democrat state senator.
Okay.
It was the Democrats that
did
first
they
started
cut,
this.
Did they cut back their own?
Actually, he actually went on. He actually said they needed to keep the Hispanic vote down. So it was actually a Democrat state senator in Rhode Island that did it.
Then okay, that's further example of what I'm talking
But
about.
let me follow your logic here. You're saying that they're causing more harm, and you think there's a sinister motive.
What I think is, if your goal is just fairness in elections, then do the part that creates the fairness. Don't do something then at the same time that's just going to suppress the turnout.
All right, well, I'm glad you said that, because when the Democrats crammed Obamacare through, over 80% of the population was happy with the coverage they had. And this was done to give coverage supposedly to 30 million uninsured, but now the estimates are up to 100 to 110, 120 million people will lose the coverage that they already had. So you're violating your very policy you just stated in Obamacare, because most of us were happy with Obamacare. So instead of fixing it piecemeal like the Republicans recommended, you threw the baby out with the bathwater.
I would say, John, that 80% figure was grossly overstated.
Oh, so that poll was wrong. So in other words,
I would
all
say,
the polling data.
I would say, being
that's
somebody
amazing
who's been
how
in
liberals work. If
I
you
would
give them a
say-
fact that they don't like, they just go, I don't believe that.
I
fact.
would say, like you, having been in business for 25 years and dealt with what was going on in the health insurance market over the last 25 years, the suggestion that we were all happy,
Franklin, over 80%.
when we had to change our
all of the
coverage,
polling,
9 times
all of
in
the
12
polling
15 years.
indicated that over 80% of the people were happy with the coverage they had and didn't want to change. By the
Of course,
way,
now, what that also skips over, John, is that the majority of those people were receiving their coverage through their employer, right?
Well, is there
So
anything
they were
wrong with that?
involved
That
in
means
that.
they were
Right,
working,
Franklin,
right?
And that's where the next 90 million people who are going to lose their coverage, according to most estimates, are going to come from.
Most estimates are not showing that, John.
Yes, they are,
No,
Franklin.
they're
Why did he
And-
delay?
and
Then why did he
and
delay
besides,
the
even
employer
and-
mandate?
and even-
Why did
and
he
even
delay
then,
the employer
even
mandate?
then, you're creating a false argument there, because when you say lose their coverage, you make
Oh,
it
that's
sound
right.
like,
They're
oh,
getting
they're
better
screwing around with that
coverage.
insurance.
You know,
They're
in
getting
many
better
cases,
coverage.
they are
In
getting
other
better
words,
coverage.
I've said this once, and I'm going to say it again. During insurance, there's no way that it can be less. It's got to be more. And Mr. Obama, instead of moving his lips and telling a lie, just needs to simply say, listen, this is the way that we're going to insure everyone. And, hey, it is going to cost people more, but that's the way we're doing it. And we're going to make sure everybody has coverage.
Well, because you don't want to count the hidden cost of paying for people who are uninsured at emergency rooms.
Well, Franklin,
You're paying for that already.
Then why don't you tell
You're
your
not going to be paying for that after
Why don't you
this.
tell your president to quit hiding the hidden expenses? Because, for
Yeah.
example, if
Just
you've
tell
got
the
a
truth.
nun and a nun decides that she doesn't need maternity coverage, I want to give her the autonomy and the woman's rights to choose not to buy maternity coverage. This president said, I don't care if you're a nun. I don't care what you are. You're going to buy maternity coverage.
You know,
I don't want to be told that as a dentist, I have to buy pediatric dental
coulda
coverage. Guess
saved-
what? I don't need it.
You could have saved, what, $600 million or $1 billion, I'm sorry.
It's a
just
massive
in designing
redistribution
the
of
Obamacare
wealth.
website. If they'd simply just done a few things on the front end, I'd rather just send extra tax money to the Social Security office for these people and get it over with. It'd
Well,
been cheaper in the long run than it would be trying to change
Well,
the whole
don't be real
system.
depressed because you're going to get to do that
Oh, I
because
know.
right now the Medicaid rolls are swelling, the Medicare rolls are swelling, but the paying customers are horrible. Colorado's exchange didn't even get half of their worst case scenario.
With all of the problems of the website, and that's perfectly fair game for you to criticize. With all those problems, though, Monday through noon yesterday, more than 1.5 million people were on there.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Frank, because guess what?
improvement.
On Monday,
Same.
Amazon handled 1 million customers per hour.
Yeah,
This president is bragging about being able to handle 50,000 an hour, which it's not handling. And by the way, Amazon, folks, is 7th
I'm
on
not
the web
bragging
traffic
about
list.
anything. What I'm pointing out to you-
Google, wait a minute, Franklin. Worldwide, Google handled in 2009 83 million users an hour, and we're bragging about 30,000.
What I'm saying is, and what that highlights, is
Is
the
that
fact
the
that there are a
government
lot of
can't do
people
anything near
who are
the-
desperately interested in getting health
Franklin,
insurance
and
coverage.
that's let me address that too. Think about what you just said. The government, in a totalitarian fashion, said you have to buy this, and you have to buy it by December 15th, and then on December 2nd, they brag about how many people are going onto the website. Guess what? These people don't have a choice. Under force of government authority, they have to do it.
And plus, all the people have no insurance.
So congratulations, folks. The dictator orders you to do something and then uses you doing it as examples of how much you
I'm
wanted
sorry,
to do
John. We have this thing called laws that are passed through
it.
Congress.
Really? And
That's
then
right.
the president has made over 60 changes to that
Now, wait a
law
minute.
unilaterally without congressional approval.
Well, we can get into another subject about that because he's going to bypass Congress with the judgeship in Washington
It's
next.
not bypassing Congress. That's what the Constitution gives him the authority to do.
Okay.
Well, actually, the plan to not appoint those 3 judges was put forward by the Democrats in 2006 because they said that court didn't need any more judges. But now that they're in the majority, they want to pack that court.
All right, let's change subject. Enough of Obamacare.
I'm glad to find out that John's for women's rights. That's interesting.
All right, we still have
I'm
3.
for everybody's rights. I'm not for segregating people out in special interest groups.
Just want to touch on this, so we don't want to get into a long, heated argument. But
By the way, on majority rights, Bobby, the majority the majority don't approve of the Obamacare mandate to pay for contraception. The last poll, only 39% supported it, 51% were opposed to it,
I bet
and
more than
11%
50%
were
of women
unsure.
support it.
51% in the poll are opposed to it, Franklin. And
John's
actually,
for
the last
women's
demographics
rights,
I
so-
I'd
saw,
like to see what the question
the
that was
last
submitted was.
demographics I saw on the women breakout, actually, the majority of women were opposed to
I
it.
find that incredibly
Aren't you
I'm
hard.
sure you
taking-
do because it doesn't fit your government model of doing what you're told.
Aren't you taking a risk with the Tea Party coming out for women's rights? That's interesting.
Frankly, you'd be surprised how many women are in the Tea Party. You know, see, Bobby, I mean, think about. I
You know the
you're being
Democrats have
funny,
a party. They
but
just
that's
haven't
what
named
this is
it yet.
about. It's about dividing people up into groups. Republican Party, we don't divide people into groups. We don't care whether you're black or white or woman or what. We believe in principle and philosophy. And so I don't care what color you are. I don't care.
I think the Republicans are more for, I got mine, you can get yours or not.
Well, that's amazing because this president collected more from Wall Street than either of his 2 Republican opponents, both times, 2008 and 2012. Wall Street gave significantly more money to this president.
Well, Wall
And
Street's
Street has
not
done
funding
well.
these pensions you were talking
Well,
about
here's
either.
the problem with Wall Street, Bobby. They're printing $83 million a month in the basement of the Fed. The only people that helps is Wall Street. It actually hurts the common people because what it does is it makes your money devalued. It's a hidden tax, and it's a hidden tax to help the corporate fat
John,
cats on
if
Wall
that
Street.
were the case, you should be seeing massive inflation.
You will
and
see
you're
it.
not seeing
You
it.
will see it. As long
it's
as they
coming.
keep printing it, it's holding it down. And but to be honest, this president's failure on the economy is the only thing that's kept the massive inflation from hitting us, but it will hit us. You can't print that much money and put it out in circulation. Right now, it's in circulation in the form of these bonds. When they start cashing those bonds in and that money hits the market, you will see massive inflation.
I hate about your bonds there. Apparently, that's soft. Yeah.
all right, we've got 3 Americans that are still in Iran. Don't you think we should have mentioned them or tried to
Well,
negotiate
especially
to get
since
them
they
out of there?
negotiated the release of a nuclear scientist that we had.
Right. I can't understand. You know, we went over there and cut this deal with Iran, and we didn't try to get any of the people that they've been holding captive back.
Didn't even the White
well,
House
how do you know
admitted
that?
because the White House admitted yesterday they didn't even bring them up. Didn't even
Well, I mean,
request.
We didn't know for 2 years that these back channel discussions were going on. You don't know
when
what's
Franklin
happening.
says we didn't know, they were asked directly if they were having back channel discussions, and they lied and said no.
What they were doing was using another government as an intermediary.
Actually,
China?
John
Oman.
Kerry went over as a senator and negotiated directly with them, and so did Hillary Clinton. And then when they were asked, they both denied it.
Well, I mean, I just, you got to deal with them to work something out. China was the deal breaker on this thing, I guess.
What? China was the deal breaker.
Yeah, they're the one that even made the suggestion that they try to do this with Iran, weren't they?
Well,
Didn't China come
Russia,
up with the idea?
Russia.
Oh, Russia. I'm sorry,
China,
Russia. Oh, I'm
England,
sorry, Russia.
France, and Germany all are backing this plan.
Actually, France called it a losing plan. Now they have backed it
signed
now
off
because
on
we
it.
don't have any
They
choice.
participated in the discussion.
But anyway, we
Franklin,
should have asked to try to get our
They
president
asked
back
for a
before we
nuclear
go.
scientist who helps them build nuclear bombs, and we released him. But we didn't ask for a Christian pastor that's being held over there, and 2 others that are being held.
American businessmen.
I mean, this.
Anyway, that
I tell you what, Franklin,
we'll just
tell
move on.
the families of those 3 men that are being held how competent this administration is.
Just came out Super Bowl commercial. We're getting into Super Bowl time. They have rejected a gun manufacturer trying to put a commercial on the Super Bowl during the Super Bowl time. Now then, under the rules, they claim that there was never any guns. There was no guns allowed in the commercials. Of course, they have beer and everything else on there, liquor and everything else. Now then, manufacturer,
beer and liquor and guns
the manufacturer
don't mix.
came back. The manufacturer,
Franklin, I'm glad
What are you doing in Tennessee?
the manufacturer
Guns and
came
bars.
back and made a commercial that absolutely has no guns in it.
Okay.
Basically, he used his wife and a baby, and that he goes in and picks up the baby, and
talks about
basically
that it's
talks
his
about
responsibility as
his
the dad to protect
responsibility
the
to
family.
his family.
What network's the Super Bowl on this time? I don't know.
I don't know.
But it's the NFL's made.
It's
the
the
decision.
NFL that made the rule.
Okay.
But
Well, our point is, Franklin, they'll advertise beer and liquor, which is actually the root of a lot of the bad shootings we have. Not the gun, but the fact that the guy was drunk when he was picking the gun up. But they won't advertise the gun itself in an ad that talks about responsibly protecting your family because it's not politically correct.
Okay.
You're not bothered by that censorship?
What I think is that you're the one who's always talking about corporations' rights to do what they want to do. The NFL is essentially a corporation all into itself, whether I like it or don't like it.
You know what?
They've got the right to do whatever they want
I'm
to do.
glad
Ron
you
says
said
we're
that.
financing it with our tax dollars.
I
And
know.
that's-
No, you and I could probably agree about that. You and I could probably agree that there's all kinds of problems with the NFL. I'm just saying.
Well, no,
that's
wait a minute.
just a
I'm glad
natural
you brought
result
that
of
up because actually there's a flaw in that argument. I agree. I support private corporations having the ability to decide what they do and don't do. The problem is I'm subsidizing the NFL because they're tax exempt.
Oh, it's worse than that. You're subsidizing all these stadiums around the country if you live in that area with your tax dollars. You
Well,
know?
I'm against that too. So my point is, if I'm subsidizing the
I'm not
NFL,
disagreeing with
then
you,
I
John.
think they ought to be open to everyone.
I'm
If
not
they don't,
disagreeing
if
with
they
you.
want to exclude one group, by God, they need to give up their tax-free subsidy.
You and I could probably agree on that point.
You know, I read something about they're doing another stadium in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Oh, they're arguing over
It's
it.
a baseball. No, it's done.
Well, but the people don't want it. The polling in the county said they don't want
Now,
it.
I know I'm getting old, but I'm not that darn old. But I remember the first stadium,
96.
and then they built a new stadium, and now they want to get rid of it.
Well, but I mean, the one they're leaving was built for the
Olympics.
Olympics in '96.
sure.
And now they want to get rid of it and build another.
They say it's not big enough.
They're going to tear that one down in the spot it is and go big.
Well, what they're going to do, and this is
Atlanta's going to tear down the new one and do some neighborhood.
I mean, this is the bad
renovation
thing.
there.
What they do is they walk away from it, and it leaves Fulton County in Atlanta with the problem of, okay, now we have an unoccupied giant facility. What do we do with it? So basically, you cannibalize one community for another.
Sure, and I don't agree with them doing that, but that's the system we've created.
Well, it's pretty amazing to me. I mean, I'm not that old that we go through these stadiums. That's quicker than malls.
Well,
Guess
as
what else?
profitable
Guess what
as
else? They're
football
getting
is-
ready to replace the Georgia Dome, the football stadium down there.
But as profitable as football is, I think they ought to be paying their own way.
Yeah. Cleveland High School Dome. Let's talk about a couple of local events before we ended up here. Cleveland High School Dome.
A marvel of government decision-making of the 70s. Let's pick the most untested architectural design we could possibly choose.
The dome in Texas, I'm trying to think the name of it.
Astrodome?
The Astrodome. Was built in the 60s, I believe. And they said that everything was huge there. The air conditioning systems were so large on this thing that when they cut the air conditioning systems off in between venues, it would actually start raining inside the dome. And, the domes, I remember Cleveland High School when they first built the school, the round dome. I thought it was a little odd. And I thought it was a little odd looking. There's somebody calling me on my phone.
I'm not an engineer, but who on that school board at that time said, hey, we need a rectangular playing field. Let's stick it in the middle of a giant circle.
Yeah.
I mean, just anybody that's done any kind of geometry would go, the bleachers won't really work real well in a round building surrounding a rectangular playing field.
But anyway, what I was going to say is that, I was always proud of that school. I was there when it first built. We did the walk to go there and everything, and the round gym was a big deal. But you know something? That gym never served the purpose for Cleveland High School. That round design, I mean, you can't get enough people in there the way it's designed.
How many people build round houses?
Not many.
You know why? Because it's their money.
Yeah.
You wouldn't risk your money on a risky design, but government institutions will always risk taxpayer money because it doesn't really hurt them directly.
All right, so what's the outcome for Cleveland High School? We're going to tear down that building and build a new gym?
Eventually.
Well, how many millions of dollars have we already spent on Cleveland High and we didn't fix the gym?
Well, I'm like you. We build a new science building and some of these stuff. This gym, I mean, they've been studying that gym for years.
Well, guys, now I'm not defending anybody, but it is 50 years old. It's not like it fell all over the day after the building.
I'm not saying
here's my problem, and I've said this before, Franklin. It's always priorities, and I'm going to get attacked over this, but we have put geothermal heating and cooling in all of these schools. Any engineer will tell you geothermal heating and cooling does not pay for itself. Now, I know you've all read the stories. It'll pay for itself in 8 years. I had an engineer that's all he does for corporations, and he said, if you're actually having to finance the money yourself, if you're a private company and you're having to go to a bank and you're having to borrow the money, if it doesn't pay for itself in 3 years, you lost money. So what they do is they get tax credits from TVA. They don't count the cost of the money to build it in the front end, and they go, oh, look, it pays for itself. It doesn't pay for itself. If it paid for itself, why wouldn't all the private corporations be putting geothermal heating and cooling in? Now, my argument here is for the amount of money we spent on geothermal heating and cooling, we could have torn that down and built a new gym. So it's all about priorities. And my daughter went to Cleveland High right after geothermal heating and cooling went in. One room would burn you to death, and the next room would freeze you to death.
The election commission is holding off again on changing the process.
The county commission?
The county commission. I'm sorry. When it gets to 150,000 population, they say this is going to be automatic. I still have not really understood all the hee-haw about this thing. Basically, you got 5 people running for
two-man
seat. 2 seats.
2 seats.
Mm-hmm.
And, they vote by their individual names.
If you oppose the A and B commission seat, and this will sound harsh, but if you oppose it, you're against one man, one vote. Because that's all the A and B would be. It would be you're running for A seat or you're running for B seat.
Well, I'm opposed to any elected body changing the rules for election that governs themselves in the upcoming election.
Well, Franklin, that's something we could deal with. We could say, okay, fine, this is going to apply the next time.
Well, and so they've got a right to go back and look at this, and if they want to vote to change the following election, at least from a legal, ethical, moral standpoint, I understand what they're doing.
I think that's what they're doing right now, but I'm still trying to figure out.
A lot of the bulk of the people that are opposed to this, they're afraid if they go to an A and B seat, they'll get a specific opponent running specifically against them. So you have people that are protecting their longevity in office. That's what this is about. Because think about it in reverse. If we had A and B seats, give me any logical argument for going to top 2 people get both seats. Explain to me the logic of that election
I don't
process.
get it. I really don't get it.
Franklin, can you? I'm not arguing, but I mean, is there any logical explanation for why you would choose the top 2 voter method in the first place?
I guess the argument would be that you are just supporting the people you want to win.
Well, but then you
And
get
that's
in,
democracy.
But no, it's not democracy.
Well, it is.
If you get single shot, you're actually perverting the vote. Because you're supposed to vote for the top 2. Well, a lot of people, what they do is they tell their guys, go in and just vote for me, and that'll bump me up percentage-wise.
Right.
Well, that's what an A and B seat would get rid of. If you want Joe, you go vote for Joe. If you want Sam, you go vote for Sam. Now, how can anybody be against one man, one vote?
I'm just saying.
Now, one of the arguments
that's
at the
theory.
commission was, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, you know what? The horse and buggy wasn't broke. I guess we shouldn't have invented the car.
All right, Bob Burris.
Yo.
Welcome to the show this morning.
Enjoyed it
I'm
very
glad we
much.
found another Democrat and get up this early.
That's
so
right, that's
you're
right.
welcome to come in anytime you
There's
want.
a silent majority.
Well, I will say, as late as I am everywhere, when I was here before Franklin, I got really worried that something bad had happened to him. Because I am always the latest person in a room.
Anyway, I want to invite you back. And
How about next week, Bob?
I'll be here.
Great, because I won't. I'll be out of town next week.
Oh,
So there you go. That worked out really well.
Okay.
Well, I
All
was
right.
just getting ready to say, now, I know you go out and meet at the Old Fort quite often with the Liars Table group.
Yes,
right?
sir. Yes, sir.
And I think we ought to have the Liars Table come down here one morning. We'll just set everybody
That's a
in
big
there.
group.
That's a pretty big group.
Yeah,
right
it's
there.
about 12 people. So
Well, we
yeah.
can get them all in here, and we'll spread these microphones out. We'll probably get a lot of good. We'll try to put them Republicans on one side and Democrats on the other, so we'll at least have them separated. a little
Oh,
bit.
if we mix them up, they'll be better behaved.
It's about 9 to 3 right now.
9
3
to 3?
Democrats and about 9 Republicans.
Well, that's
But-
not a fair fight.
No, well-
those Republicans don't have a chance.
No, they don't. They don't.
John, you got anything to say? You
I'll
look
let
like
No, I just was going to ask Franklin, since he's a good Democrat, you have any information for us when the president will keep his promise to sign up for Obamacare? Because the White House is refusing to say why he hasn't yet and when he will, although he promised he would.
You have a direct line there, Franklin.
I do.
I didn't
I'm
know
gonna-
that
I'm
you
gonna
had
go
that
out
much
and call him.
access to the president.
Yeah, I'm
That's
gonna get out
good.
there.
That's
What, so
good.
you got a free Obama phone?
Yeah, right at it. Yeah. You mean the phones created by
The
Reagan?
phones that, no, I mean the phones that they used to actually coordinate the vote last time.
All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in, and happy holidays on the upswing. We're in December, so happy holidays to you, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson, John Stanberry, and Franklin Chansey. Catch them again on Whoop FM at noon today and every Wednesday morning.